Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry an almona. He must marry a besula, a maiden, somebody who's never been married before. And there is a very interesting Da'askenim lebalei HaTosfos, who asks, why is it that the Torah said that a Kohen Gadol cannot marry an almona? A regular Kohen is allowed to marry an almona. He can't marry a divorcee, but he can marry a widow. He can't marry a grusha, but he can marry a widow. Why can't a Kohen Gadol can't marry a widow? Why must he marry somebody who's a psula, who's a maid? So asks the Moishav Skenim lebalei Tosfos. Now, generally we don't look at time of the crow. We don't look to search for reasons why the Torah said this. What are you asking questions? But we know that Chinuch gives time mitzvahs. The Sefer Chinuch gives the reasons for the mitzvah behind the mitzvahs. The Moishav Skenim lebalei Tosfos says a fascinating reason why the Torah said a Kohen shouldn't marry an almana. Says the Moishav Skenim lebalei Tosfos something phenomenal. He says that if a Kohen Gadol were allowed to marry a widow, then the Torah suspects that when a Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim to do the Avodah, there may be suspicion that maybe he's eyed a certain married woman, he's taken a liking to a certain married woman, and while he's in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he'll daven to the Rabbi Shalom that this woman's husband should die, so that he'll be able to marry her. And for Shteitz, daven in Kohen Gadol, daven in Kodesh HaKadoshim, it's going to work. Because of that concern, the Torah said that a Kohen Gadol shouldn't marry an almana. So writes the Moshe Skenim lebalei Tosfos. And to me, that's absolutely mind-boggling. We find many times in the Gemara an expression, Oto Bereshi Askino. Are we talking about Rishoyim? The Torah wasn't written for Rishoyim. The Torah didn't write this law because some Rosha wants to marry some who became Kohen Gadol, and he wants to marry a woman who's married already, and he's such a Rosha that B'Yom Kippurim he's going to be toivel b'sheretz wedding. He's going to daven in the Kodesh HaKadoshim when all the Klal Yisrael are relying upon him. He's going to daven at the woman's husband. He's such a Rosha. Is that who the Torah is talking about? Who was the Kohen Gadol? I mean, do we know who the Kohen Gadol was? We're talking about the holiest person in the holiest place on the holiest day of the year, the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol. Now, do we know how the Kohen Gadol prepared for the Avodah on Yom Kippurim? For months beforehand, he had to practice. Before Yom Kippur, they sent in front of him Parim Elu Mukvasim. The Mishnah says that they passed by him all sorts of different animals that he should be quick to identify what a par is, what an isle is, what a kevis is, because the Avodah on Yom Kippur was so intense and fast. He had to have so much practice. And don't forget, they set the whole week beforehand, and they taught him, and he had to become tohir. And the ktoiris that he did in the Kodesh HaKadoshim was near impossible act, an acrobatic act, to a feat that he could manage. He had to hold the pan with his teeth and the ladle. It was just an impossible way of doing the avodah. Have you ever learnt about it? Of how the Kohen Gadol did the actual Ketores in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. You had to have been an acrobat to be able to do what he did. And he had to practice it and practice it and practice it. You can imagine the tension. And the toy, don't forget, and also he was fasting, don't forget, throughout. He had to change his clothes 5 times, dip in a mikveh 5 times, backwards and forwards, lift huge animals, wave animals which were weighing hundreds of kilos. You know what a behemoth weighs. You know what it means. You even know what a chelik of a behemoth weighs. Imagine putting the emerim on the mizbeach. Yeah, it's and what did the Kohen Gadol look like when he came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Well, we sing it on Yom Kippur. Emes man nehedar, or Yom Mare Kohen Gadol b'tzeisoy. How wondrous was the way the Kohen Gadol looked when he came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and the beautiful descriptions that we describe in this beautiful song that we sing, Mare Kohen, kekeshes nimtzo b'soicha onon, like the rainbow in the clouds, kevered beginas. I can't remember all the wording. Like a rose in a bush of a beautiful garden tree. I mean, the descriptions are so beautiful and romantic and enlightening the image of the Kohen Gadol as he came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And this Kohen Gadol, are you telling me that there is a suspicion that while he was focused on doing this acrobatic act of trying to hold the pan of the coals with his teeth and putting the levoina in an ektoris, and he was mamash, at that moment he's busy thinking that he wants to marry that woman, he's going to daven that husband should die? It doesn't make sense. The answer is very simple. You know what the answer is? The answer is there's no such thing as security from the Yetzer Hara. A person is always vulnerable by the Yetzer Hara. And more so, the Yetzer Hara attacks a person when he least expects it. When the Kohen Gadol is in the Kodesh HaKadoshim Yom Kippurim, the last thing he expects is that the Yetzer Hara should happen. Because he has reached a level over the months and period of Elul and everything, and he is so focused on his avodah that he's got to do and the responsibility, that the last thing he expects is the Yetzer Hara should happen now. Oh, but the Satan knows when to hap a person when he least expects it. And that's when he haps him. A person is never secure from the Yetzer Hara. It doesn't matter who he is, what he is, where he is. He can be the biggest tzaddik in the world. He can be the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur Lifnai V'Lifnim. But the Torah tells us you can't marry an almana because even such a person could suddenly get chapped by his Yetzer Hara. Nobody's immune from the Yetzer Hara. And that's why Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavlin. It's interesting that the Gemara uses the word Tavlin, that the Chazal uses the word Barasi. Hashem says, I created the Yetzer Hara and I created Torah as a spice. Why Torah is a spice? Why not? I created Torah. What does mean Torah is a spice? The answer is when the food is bland and it's boring, what do? You spice it up. Why does a person get chapped by his Yetzer Hara? Because the Yetzer Hara shows him things that are exciting, things that are spicy, and entices him with spicy things. Says the version, Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavlin. If you want to overcome the Yetzer Hara, I'll show you what's spicy. You know what's spicy? You know what's enjoyment? You know what gives a person a kick? Torah. That is the true antidote to the Yetzer Hara. If the Yetzer Hara haps a person, Moshcheila Beis HaMedrash. That is the true. So it can be anything. It can be learning through Mesilas Yesharim in English. Now we always in yeshiva always thought Mesilas Yesharim is boring. I'm learning it now with somebody. It's absolutely fascinating. You take an art scroll. This is Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavlin. And that is the spice of life that keeps us going.